Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to welcome you today to our webinar on Inclusive Steps, Universal Design for Stairs. My name is Fionnuala Rogerson. I'm a member of the RII Universal Design Task Force, and the task force, together with the RII, are delighted to partner with the Centre for Excellence in Universal Design to promote today's webinar. This is the third in a series of 4 webinars on different aspects of universal design in the built environment. But before we start, I'd just like to highlight some accessibility features of today's webinar to you. Live captions are being provided by Elaine of PCR, so you can turn on and off the captions using the CC button at the bottom of your screen. We're also joined by Irish Sign Language interpreters Catherine White and Leah Murray. To control the ISL interpretation, you can use the icon that looks like a globe that will appear shortly on the bottom of your screens. On some screens, that might be under the More button. This webinar is being recorded, and it will be available over the coming weeks on the Centre's website, universaldesign.ie. The Centre will be providing CPD certs to anyone who requested one at registration for the webinar today. The presentation today is by Nicola Ryan, who is a co-director of Studio Red Architects. Nicola is a Grade 2 conservation architect. She has a special interest in inclusive housing solutions to the development of existing buildings, infill plots and backland sites in established communities. She has recently taken up the position of chair of the RII Universal Design Task Force, which I'm delighted to mention, and she's also a member of the National Standards Authority of Ireland Technical Committee for the new National Standard for Universal Design Dwellings. Nicola recently completed a small co-housing development with her business partner, Gráinne Dunn, to provide 3 family homes on a backland site in the village of Chapelizod. Her family's home is designed around the specific needs of her son, who has autism, epilepsy and mobility issues, and it was highly commended in the RII Awards in 2022. Last year, Nicola also gave a CPD session in which she presented a series of case studies of her work in webinar 3 in housing, and a link to a recording of that is also available on CEUD's website, universaldesign.ie, for anyone interested. Today, Nicola is going to speak for about 40 minutes, and we should have 10 to 15 minutes for questions at the end of the presentation. Please use the Q&A function on Zoom to send in your questions, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. So now I'm going to hand you over to Nicola.
Thanks very much, Fionnuala. I am going to share my presentation and get organised here, if you bear with me. And thank you to the CEUD for having me along to present this lecture on universal design approach to stair design. So the title is Inclusive Steps, Universal Design for Stairs. So fasten your seatbelts, everyone, because we've loads to get through, and I'm going to make this as enjoyable as possible for you all. So essentially what I would like the learning outcomes to be for you will be an improved awareness of the different types of people who are impacted by stair design, knowledge of the stair features that can improve usability and accessibility for the widest range of users. And as designers, that's really important for us to understand that, and to understand the spatial and design or detailed design implications for taking a universal design approach to stairs. So in the next 40 minutes or so, we'll do a quick run through of stairs through the ages. We'll have a think about who we are designing for. We'll talk about stair design and safety and using the 7 principles of universal design when we are designing stairs. We will look through the building regulations and universal design guidelines relating to stairs. And we'll have a talk through existing stairs, how we can improve accessibility of those, We'll take a look at some case studies, both good and bad, and then hopefully we'll have some time for questions at the end. Description: a stairs is a set of steps that lead from one level to another, especially in a building. But we all know as designers that there's a lot more that goes into it than that. So if we go back through stairs through the ages, and some of the earliest stone steps that we know are in existence are on Orkney in Scotland. I'm not even going to try and pronounce, or maybe I will, Minehow or Minahow in Orkney in Scotland. And essentially it's an Iron Age site, and under a stone corbelled roof there is a set of steep stone steps that we think would have brought the user down in a spiritual way down to the underground or the underworld. So it was a passage down to the underworld, and so it was something very symbolic. And that set of stairs had a landing, so they were way ahead of themselves even back then. The image on the right hand side of the screen shows Chucky Corrow, which is an Incan development. And it shows these beautiful cultivation terraces with white stone llamas set into them, and very steep sets of steps going up and down. And I've actually been there, and I think possibly climbed that set of steps, and it wasn't easy at such an altitude. And I don't know, it was in younger days. I don't know what I'd be able for it now. And then looking back to some of the earliest timber stairs that we know of, and they are in a city close to Vesuvius. And during the eruption of the volcano in 79 AD, volcanic ash covered this set of timber stairs, and that is how it's been preserved to this day. And then I suppose if we look at how stairs have kind of symbolized things for us, so we saw the earlier set of stairs, which was a passage to the underworld. In Mexico, we see the Mayans building sacred temple on top of a pyramid, and this set of very steep steps symbolizing this ascent to something sacred. And again, in Girona in Spain, Catholic cathedral doing something similar, where it's an ascension to a holier place. The image on the left-hand side of this screen shows a stairs many of us may be familiar with, because it's in the RIAI, the Institute of Architects in Merrion Square. So it's in a Georgian building. It's an 18th century staircase. And anytime I'm in the RIAI, I feel very fit, because you can go up and down that stairs with great ease. And that is very much to do with the rise and going of the steps and the generosity of the tread. And then the image on the right shows the Opera House in Paris. It was developed by Napoleon, and it is a very grand central staircase. And you can imagine night of the opera, lots of people gathering, passing through, people spotting on this stair. So it was very much a place of occasion. And then more recent examples on this slide, Le Corbusier's Villa Savoie in France shows a staircase, and Le Corbusier would have used stairs and ramps intrinsically in his buildings to allow a promenade, so an experience of the buildings. And then in the 1930s, we see Frank Lloyd Wright image on the right-hand side in his house Falling Water, and a set of very detailed stairs cascading down to the pool underneath the house. So I suppose we've had a look back at various stairs and how they were used and why they were designed in the way that they were. And I think at this point in time, and particularly as designers, we need to think about who are we designing for now. And I suppose in more recent times, Le Corbusier would have used this ideal man standard, and Leonardo da Vinci would have used that previously, of these ideal proportions. There is a QR code on this page, and I think a link will go up in the chat also if you prefer to access it that way. And I would love you all to pick up your phone to access this Slido website and have think about what percentage of our population falls into the bracket of ideal proportions. And then put the phone down again and come back to me, because we're not done yet. So this voting is ongoing. Okay, I think we've nearly come in there. So the options were 6%, 16%, 36%, or 60%. And I'm glad that the lowest percentage said 60%, because very few of us really fall into those proportions. The most accurate percentage there is 16% of us would fit within an ideal proportion. So that's very, very few people. And I suppose if we think about how our building regulations have come about, the dimensions that are provided within those, they're very much catering towards a standardized person, which we know doesn't exist. So really within, modern society, and how hopefully our society and our design thinking is improving, when we go to design stairs, we need to think about the users. And this slide shows a series of images of people carrying shopping bags, of a small child encountering steps, of somebody who's visually impaired using a guide dog, somebody who's visually impaired using a cane, a man carrying a child, somebody requiring assistance going up and down stairs, somebody with a temporary injury or a more chronic condition with lower body mobility challenges, people moving house, so people carrying. So if we think about kind of our lead users who we're designing for when we design stairs, I suppose for me, what comes to mind is somebody who's visually impaired or somebody with a mobility impairment. But I think it's important to also think about the whole host of other people that we're designing for. So other people who could find stairs challenging may have issues with balance, fatigue, a fear of falling, which can often happen after you've suffered a fall, that you become very anxious about falling again and become hesitant. Somebody who's anxious, somebody with a respiratory issue, for example, asthma, somebody with heart disease. And then continuing on from that, somebody who is pregnant. Now, the image on the bottom right shows a very stylish and elegant lady climbing a very long set of stairs. And I can guarantee you, in none of my pregnancies did I look like that coming up the stairs. It was definitely a lot of huffing and puffing and sweating. But if you think about the change in your center of gravity, if you're carrying a weight or if you are pregnant, that can impact how you move up and down the stairs. Arthritis, obviously, somebody who has difficulty with moving joints, joint stiffness, knee or ankle pain, and even things like medication side effects if you have a dizziness or poor balance arising from that. So really, if we think about it, stair design impacts such a huge range of people. So just a few stats on stair safety. In the UK, 700 people die from falls on stairs every year, which is a huge number. And then there are over 43,000 people hospitalized every year due to falls on stairs in their home. So again, these are really high numbers. And if we think about the impact of that on families, hospital services, care needs, if we can try and design out some of the safety issues on stairs, then we can start alleviating some of the suffering. And in Ireland, we have a statistic where every working day, one person is hurt in a fall on stairs and steps at work. So as designers, what can we do to try and alleviate this? What can we do to try and make stairs easier to use for the greatest range of people? So we need to consider the impact of stair design on users' balance. We need to consider users' behaviours on stairs, because that can vary considerably. We can use the 7 principles of universal design when we're designing stairs. And then we can use building regulations and universal design guideline documents. So, and I think that "and" is really important there. So if you think about balance, factors that influence balance and safety on stairs, obviously there's the design of the stair itself. There's how it was constructed, how it's maintained. Is it clean? Is it slippy? Is it wet? The surrounding environment, distractions. How many people are using the stairs? So is there a rush at certain times of the day? Are people encountering other people coming up or down? And the varying characteristics of the stair users, which we had a look at some of those earlier. And how do we design for safer stairs? So we can avoid circumstances that cause accidents. And then if an accident does happen, how do we minimize the impact of that? So this, just want to show you a quick video here, which I think really well illustrates how somebody potentially with lower mobility challenges would encounter stairs. And I think it's just a good visual to remind us why we need to think about nosings, treads, goings, handrails, distance between handrails, all of those things. So I'm going to, hopefully this will share okay here.
Pompe disease is a progressive and potentially life-threatening genetic neuromuscular disorder. When symptoms present in individuals 1 year of age and older, the disease is most often referred to as late-onset Pompe disease, or LOPD. LOPD is characterized by progressive weakness in the trunk and proximal muscles. These may be more severely affected or have a longer disease duration. Brian is a 44-year-old man with LOPD. As with many people with LOPD, weakness in the pelvic girdle and proximal muscles makes it difficult for Brian to climb stairs. Notice how Brian relies on the support of handrails. He is unable to lift one leg while supporting himself on the other, and can only climb one step at a time. Overcompensating weak core muscles with upper body strength is a characteristic of LOPD. When using 2 handrails, Brian relies on his arms to pull his body up one step at a time. Similarly, when Brian descends the stairs, he requires the support of a handrail for balance at each step. This is Susan, a 50-year-old woman who has LOPD. Susan is more severely affected by the disease. Weakness in her proximal muscles and pelvic girdle makes it challenging for Susan to climb stairs, typical of a person with LOPD. Notice how Susan has difficulty lifting one leg while supporting herself on the other, limiting her to climbing or descending one step at a time when using one handrail. She also uses her free hand to push off her leg to compensate for her pelvic and proximal muscle weakness. When using both handrails, Susan is able to use her upper body strength to compensate for weak core muscles by pulling herself up the stairs and supporting herself going down, allowing her to alternate legs as she climbs.
So I hope that video just shows how, when we consider the varying characteristics of people using stairs, how small measures can really enable people rather than disable them. No, sorry.
Pompe disease.
Here we go. So when we're thinking about stair design and users' behavior, there are plenty of things that can distract people on stairs. So chatting, of which I'd be guilty, carrying items that will throw off your center of gravity or equilibrium. So the first image shows a man coming up a subway stairs carrying a heavy bag. And if you could imagine in rush hour doing the same thing, there'd be lots of people pushing off you or bouncing off you as well. So to consider that. Any distractions and natural navigation paths. So there's a nice image on the right-hand side of the screen, which is the marble stairs in the Tower of Pisa. So it's curving around as it comes up the tower. And there's a beautiful wear path, which shows where people's preferred foot placement is, which tends to be towards the outer edge of the curving stairs, not in at the narrow part at the smaller tread availability. And so when we think about the 7 principles of universal design, and I know Ruth went through these in the first lecture, and how we would apply these to stair design. So equitable use, we want the design to cater for the greatest range of people possible. Flexibility in use, we want different people to be able to use the stairs in the way that's most suitable for them. Simple and intuitive use, so it should be very clear where the top and bottom of the stairs are. The handrail is easy to understand. Perceptible information. So the stairs can be a really important part of informing people, particularly, let's say, somebody who's a visual impairment, in informing that person how to navigate both the stairs itself and the building. The tolerance for error, so we want to minimize hazards. And if somebody does have an accident, how can we ensure that is as limited as possible? Low physical effort. And again, coming back to that, the stairs in the RIAI, where there's the lovely low rise and generous going, that you really don't exert so much physical effort going up and down. And then also the size and space, so of the stairs itself, but also of the space that is allowed for the stairs. And I think that's an important one, and we'll talk about that a little more. So coming to the technical guidance documents and universal design guidelines. So the TGDs, we know we've got Part K, which covers stairs. We've got Part M, which covers access and use. And also Part B would play in stair design for fire safety and escape. Universal design guidelines, there are numerous documents available. The CEUD have a range of documents forming buildings for everyone. The CEUD Universal Design Homes in Ireland document is for private homes. There's the European standard and British standard 8300, which I think is being revised, but Fionnuala would probably be more up to date on that than I would, and others. So I have split these into, I suppose, a table, just really showing for each element of the stairs what is allowed, Part K, Part M, and I've taken the CEUD Buildings for Everyone UD guidelines as a reference point for universal design. So if we look quickly across Part K for the rise of a step, and this is for public stairs, that's important to say, for public stairs. The max rise is 180. Part M stipulates 150 to 180, and so does the Buildings for Everyone. Going Part K is a minimum of 280. CUD is recommending 300 to 450. Okay, so that's a really big difference in terms of the rise and going of a Part K versus rise and going of universal design guidelines. On this slide, we're showing reference to open treads, pitch and length of flights. For open tread, Part K says, yes, it is possible to have an open tread in a public stairs with a max 100 mil opening. And the Buildings for Everyone says no open treads permissible. I'm going to tell you a little anecdote. We have a guide dog puppy, and she was on her ultimate test walk in Liffey Valley Shopping Centre last week, and she passed with flying colours until we came to a shop with a black shiny stairs with open risers. And when she went to go up to it, she couldn't compute the stairs at all. She was well able to go up and down stairs, but she couldn't understand the openness, the glass balustrade either side. And the only verb I can say is she skedaddled from one side of the stairs to the other, up and then back down again. So if you think about, even the impact on someone who's visually impaired, not only is it challenging for them to read spaces between steps and that visual distraction then of what's going on between the risers, but also if they had an assistance dog, guide dog with them, they're also going to find it difficult to read. So something to think about. On this slide where it goes through handrail sides, so Part K is saying handrail on one side if a metre wide or less, and both sides if greater than a metre. Buildings for Everyone saying both sides and continuous. And again, that's that information feed again. So let's say if you are visually impaired, that the handrail is actually guiding you around the journey up the stairs. And this is in a public stair, so you may not have encountered the stairs before. So that's really important, that the building is giving you feedback. It's informing you as to where you should be going. And then in parquet, it's allowing a minimum headroom of 2 meters. That rises to 2.2 for buildings for everyone. And then information on landings. So parquet says at the top and bottom of each flight, and there are restrictions on door openings onto the landing. For buildings for everyone, it's at top and bottom of the flight, clear of any door swing, and the length is a minimum of 1200 or the width of the stairs if that is greater. Then the location of stairs, importantly for Part M and in buildings for everyone, it's not stipulated in parquet that it shouldn't be located in the direct line of an access route, because that can be a hazard for somebody who's not anticipating it there. And then for soffit areas under stairs, there's no requirement for guarding in Part K. In Part M, guarding should be provided where the soffit under the stairs is less than 2.1. And in buildings for everyone, there's a requirement to provide guarding and low-level cane detection or a barrier. So if somebody's using a cane, that they can tap against that and know not to keep going. So I'm just going to look at some diagrams which show for public stairs, Part K, the type of stairs that we can achieve just using Part K building regulations. So we have a max pitch of 33 degrees. We've got a max rise of 180. We've got an open riser. We can have an oversail or a nosing. And we've got a minimum head height of 2 meters. There's no continuation of handrail at the top or the bottom of the stairs, and there's no requirement for guarding to the undercroft of the stairs. And that's it in plan form there. So we're showing 16 risers in one flight. There's a handrail required to one side at that meter width. And yeah, so we've got a 16 mil oversail at an open tread. So there's a little bit of I find, you know, and I think as an architect, you're referring to Part B, Part M, Part K, Part whatever else, and sometimes they're telling you different things. And I think one of the big ones for stairs is that Part M states that at least one set of stairs suitable for ambulant disabled people should be provided to access all floors above or below entrance level in a building. Then Part M sort of leaves the escape stairs to Part B. So we could have a Part M compliant stairs as you come in, but then if something happened and you need to escape, now you're in a Part B stairs, which may actually be quite unusable for you. So it's nearly like we're kind of building in obstacles for ourselves. So just quickly then, public stairs Part M building regulations. The different series of the handrail is turned in, or it extends 300 mil beyond the top and bottom step, and it turns down or in at the end. We've got a minimum 300 tread and a maximum 180 rise. So this is a much more generous stairs. We've got maximum of 1.8 meters in the rise of one flight of steps, and then we require landing. There is a requirement for guarding under the stairs, and given the maximum rise and minimum going, there's a max of 31 degree pitch for Part M stairs. And in plan, we're seeing it there that there's a handrail both sides, that it's a minimum of 1200 mil in width, and that any door openings then are minimum width of the stairs away from the top step. So then if we look at a universal design guideline stairs, so here again the handrail extends 300 mil to the top and the bottom. It's continuous along the landing. We have requirement for guarding and a tapping or cane detection rail to the undercroft of the stairs. We've got a max 31 degrees pitch. And again, there's a max rise of 1800 or 12 steps in any one flight. And that's in plan there. So we're showing the extended width there. And then this diagram I think is interesting because we're showing parquet in blue and universal design guidelines in black, and they're laid over each other. And I suppose it's quite apparent here that the big requirement to enable us to design for the greatest range of people is space. So we need a generosity of space to allow us to design universal design stairwells. I think that it's really apparent from this diagram of the kind of the ease that you could go up and down a universal design stairs versus, you know, the how steep this blue open riser stairs is in parquet, and just the different experience that you would have between going up one and the other. So in terms of private stairs now, so this table is showing private stairs and the difference between parquet Part M and CEUD, the guidelines for homes. And within that CEUD document, there are guidelines shown for, or guidance given for UD, UD plus and UD plus plus homes. So the information that I've pulled out here is UD guidance, so universal design homes. So in a parquet, in a home environment, there's a maximum rise of 220. In the guidelines for homes, currently there's a max of 170. It looks like that will rise to 175 in the new documents coming out next year. The going for parquet is a minimum of 220. In the UD guidelines, it's 280 to 300. And again, we're seeing that generosity aspect there. In parquet, oversailing nosings are permitted, and in UD guidelines, there are no projections on nosings. And again, if you think about that video that we looked at previously, where the figure Brian was going up and down the stairs and he had difficulty lifting his feet, that if you have a nosing that extends out too far, at each step, that's an obstacle to try and lift your foot up and over. So in parquet open tread stairs in the home they're possible with a max 100 mil gap. In the CEUD guidelines, they're not. And there's a series of information here on handrails, stair widths, and I think a good one here is on tapered treads. We'll come to an image on this shortly. For parquet, yes, tapered treads are permitted in private homes. And the CEUD guidelines that say no, that really straight flights are much more accessible. And then for headroom, again, parquet is stating 2 meters minimum, and Part M and CEUD leave that up to other guidelines or other regulations. So if we look at a private stair diagram, following parquet regulations, we're seeing a max of 42 degrees pitch. We're seeing a minimum of 2 meters head height. We're seeing a max of 16 risers in one flight, and a max of 220 and a minimum of a max 220 rise and a minimum 220 tread. Now you have to vary one or other of those to meet your 42 degree pitch. And this example of a stairs I'm showing is with a 2.4 meter ceiling at the lower floor and a 300 mil floor depth. So with the rise is 2.7 overall. And that's the plan there. So we're showing a minimum of 400 mil before door opens onto stairwell at the lower level, and minimum width of the stairs at the upper level, and a handrail required to one side. And then with the private stairs, the UD guidelines, we are seeing an ideal clearance at the bottom of the stairs of 1200 mil, and this would allow for future provision of a stair lift. So this would be the area to get onto the lift as you go up and down. We're seeing a max 31-degree pitch, and that's coming from a max 170 rise and a minimum 280 tread, and a landing, a minimum width of the stairs at the top of the stairs before a doorway. And we can have 16 risers permissible in one flight. And that's the same as Parquet, the 16 riser piece. In UD guidelines, one continuous handrail is required, but we allow for future-proof to allow for a second handrail. So again, if we think back to the video of the figure Brian, where it was much easier for him to hold handrails both sides going up and down the stairs. And again, now I've overlaid Part K in the home versus UD guidelines in the home. And again, we're seeing that what universal design stairs require is a generosity of space. Now, it's not massive, but we do need more space. So that difference in the two examples that I've shown there is 1392 millimeters in the length of the stairs. And then there is an impact at the head height as well. So just moving through to handrails, Parquet is very light on handrails. It's just really a description that they should give firm support, should be readily gripped by hand, and they may form the top of the guarding if that's appropriate, and they're not required at the bottom two steps of domestic stairs. Part M has further information around the sizing of the handrails, the spacing from the wall, and the profile of the handrails. There are, I suppose, varying thoughts on introducing a second handrail at a lower height. So it can be appropriate for somebody of short stature or a child to be able to grip a lower level handrail. In certain circumstances, it may provide a climbing hazard. So that's something to think about, that you don't want somebody to be able to put a foot up onto the lower handrail and then up and over balustrade. In UD guidelines, so this is from CEUD Buildings for Everyone, there's a couple of changes or recommendations here. So greater spacing from the wall to the handrail, where a lower handrail is provided, that's a smaller diameter. And these images are taken from the European standard, and they show a series of different profiles of handrails. So from round to oval to squarish to rectangular. And they recommend against a large diameter, a steel flat, or something that you have to slot your hand into to hold on to. And then I think this is a nice image. It shows, the image on the right-hand side shows a handrail that is usable by somebody who's shorter and somebody who's taller, different sized hands, and that would be a universal design handrail. So just thinking through existing stairs. So there are lots of situations where an existing stairs can be improved greatly in terms of safety. And I just want to show you a video here of this amazing lady. She's visually impaired and she's an advocate. And she films herself in various precarious situations with her guide dog. So I press play on that now.
This is how me and Miss Molly go downstairs in a really old building and windy stairs. Sweetheart, good girl. She's very slow with me. So we just take it one step at a time. Good girl. So we go really slow. It's quite precarious, guys. Good girl, Molly. Gonna hold onto the banister. Good girl. I can feel her harness. Go, tell me. Good girl. Sometimes she's a bit uncertain because she knows I am. Good girl.
So So I think that video shows, I suppose, generally a guide dog will walk to the left-hand side of somebody. And so for this lady going down the stairs, because there's no handrail to the right-hand side, she's very, very reliant on the dog and just putting her hand against a wall for balance. And then she encounters the window and there's no wall now for balance. And you can notice the video was a little bit clipped out. You kind of wonder, maybe did something happen? So again, with an existing stairs, we need to think about what improvements can we make to make them more usable to the greatest range of people. There's a really good document published by Department of Arts, Heritage and Gaeltacht, and it's around access and improving the accessibility of historic buildings and places. So that's a good one to take a look at.
This is how.
Just another kind of personal anecdote. So my grandparents are in a photograph to the left-hand side, and they were great supporters of the arts. And there's an image to the right-hand side of the screen, which is of the National Gallery of Ireland, and beautiful staircase, which is curved around a central volume. And my granny, they were at an event, my granny lost her footing. She was holding the handrail coming down on the inside of the curved stairs. She lost her footing right at the bottom. She fell down 2 or 3 steps and hit her head. And there followed 7 or 8 years of hospital stays, nursing homes, caring at home. And it totally changed their lives, really. So the photograph on the right-hand side shows interventions carried out by Hennig and Peng. And it's a very delicate handrail that has been installed. And I have to be honest, I got a little bit emotional when I saw it, because, like, God, if only it had been there. But it's taking away that very narrow section of the tapered tread, and it's done in a very delicate way. It can be taken away. It's clearly a contemporary addition to the protected structure. A couple of case studies then, just to run through. There's an image on the left showing an open riser, one single folding handrail, and a kind of a pit underneath the stairs. And that would give me the absolute heebie-jeebies to go up. And I suppose that, look, I think as architects, we need to question why would you design in danger? The image on the right shows Robson Square in Vancouver. It was designed by Arthur Erickson in the 1970s, and I believe it was he had a family member who was a war veteran and a wheelchair user. And when designing the public space, he wanted to make it as accessible as possible to the greatest range of people. And he came up with this split stairs and ramp design. In later years, he came to realize that actually that wasn't a good universal design approach, that even though the ramp had been created and everybody was going up and down the same way, it actually was a dangerous setup for both wheelchair users and the stair users as well. Here's an example of a timber stair and seating scenario. It's in Nyo showroom in Oslo. Again, probably getting the pronunciation wrong there. Here we're seeing a series of tapered treads. We're seeing, if you stand at the bottom of that stairs and look at the image on the right-hand side, it's very unclear as to what is timber, board, what is a tread, what is the nosing. So again, just thinking about the types of materials that you're specifying so that it's feeding information to the stair user. And then this case study is at the Royal College of Surgeons, and it's by Henry J. Lyons. And this is a universal design stairs. It's central to the foyer as you come in. There's a generosity to it. It's sculptural. It's well lit. We can see a continuous handrail. We can see landings at the top of each of the flights. The handrails are continuing beyond them, so they're feeding information to the building user, and a very clear nosing strip as well. The central photograph shows the reception desk under the stairs, kind of forming that barrier to the undercroft of the stairs. And then the image on the right-hand side, which I think is nice, is showing students greeting each other from one floor to another. So that stairs kind of promoting that little moment of joy within buildings. Another example by Henry J. Lyons is in the Central Bank of Ireland. And here again, this is in a central foyer area. And we can hear a little bit more about the stairs from one of the users in the Central Bank. This is Tony.
I mean, I've had a disability all my life, effectively. So, you know, it's always in the back of your mind that, you know, maybe accessing things is different, and maybe, you know, the way I use my technology is slightly different. But to work in an environment which is so accessible and so usable, like this, it kind of enables me to not have to consider my disability in any way. Where the chairs are. The stairways in the building are all very, very wide. The risk of bumping into somebody who's on the way up or on the way down is minimised. The handrails, they're at the right height. They're on both sides. And again, apart from being a safety feature, it's a navigation feature for myself, because once I know I've hit that handrail, I know I'm at the staircase, and I know, you know, there's a certain number of steps per staircase. And it allows me to basically move from floor to floor with great ease and great sort of confidence. Here in North, I mean,
and so just note then, just on considering the detailing. So that's the image on the left, shows the nosing detail in the Central Bank. So it's done in a stone tile. It's a natural material. It's in contrast with the main body of the tread and the main body of the rise. And also, I suppose, thinking about, like, how can we make something really beautiful? Something, the central photo shows a really beautifully profiled timber handrail, which would just be a lovely thing to touch. And then the image on the right-hand side shows that information feed that a stairs can give you. So braille as you're approaching the top or bottom of the stairs. So in summary, I suppose, again, as designers, as architects, we need to be thinking of the greatest range of users. If we want to build in a sustainable and a kind way, then we need to be enabling people rather than disabling them. If we build buildings that enable people, they are more sustainable. They are going to cater for a greater range of people. We're going to see more people out using them. And I suppose we have a responsibility to inform our clients of how important that is, if that universal design approach hasn't come from the client as well. So I suppose from our own work in our office, we would find that there's a joy in just thinking about each of those design elements and just stop and think about, how can I make this a bit more accessible? How can I make this easier to use? How can I extend the use of this to the greatest range of people? And it is a little bit more challenging, but I think when you get it and when the building is produced, it gives you a much greater level of satisfaction in the work that you're doing. So back to you, I think, Fionnuala, for any questions that are coming up. I hope I can answer them.
Thank you very much,